All right. So let's change these functional components into class components.
We're all going to exit class.
Instead of this function, I'll have a class. And I believe that's the right syntax. Oh, I need to inherit from component. So class extends react.component. Can I do this? All right, so my vanilla JavaScript has to go where?
Above the return.
Above the return and inside.
So given that it's a we're just saying the class, you can
Render.
Constants as class variables.
Constants.
Because we're shifting to a component, you can create constants and functions.
Yes, yes. So this calculation is all in vanilla JavaScript. I want it inside my render, but before the return. Something's odd here.
Does the return need to be inside the render?
Yes. The return has to be inside the render. And then, oh dear, what's going on here? Let me just look at an example. Ah, that's what it looks like. And I don't need this. What's going on there? Huh. I wonder why that's red. Anyway, I don't think it's working. There's some. So those things aren't defined. Guest letters, these are props. So how do we access props in a component?
Just that prop.
All right. This dot props because it's a class. All right. I think we still have some things working. It should be about the same. There's no functions that we're calling. We're just passing down some props, and props are just state passed down to child components. And we did all our vanilla JavaScript calculation inside this this render, but before the return. The return has to be one HTML element. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Let's go to let's just do this one real quick. Now, this is a bit of a chore, isn't it? Okay. And this goes in a render. Oh. And this is props. And that should also work. Or not.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Wait.
Double quotes there.
Where did that come from? I saw it, but I thought it was there already.
Yes.
Okay. Where it starts to get really different is the state. But I think I have one left that's just, here, we're not calling any functions, so it's pretty much the same. You know what, I'm gonna spare you the, let's do the one with state. All right, we have state here. Class app extend component. I'm gonna go ahead and make a render. Oops. And now this is not going to work because we need to use state. So some of you might have seen something called a constructor. And then state is made somehow something like this, I forget, and it'll look like something like this. Instead of this is fine. This is one way to do it, and you'll see examples of it. Just know that this is just the same as doing this. This is just the old way. And I'm gonna say puzzle is just an object. It's this here that I want. Comma, and this would be an empty array. So that gets rid of this line and this line. Here, we declared a, I'm not sure if this would work or not, actually. No, because we need to set state, right? So first let's change this and see why we wouldn't want to do this in the render. What's the set state equivalent of this line here?
Set state equivalent would be, well, it's just set state and then parentheses.
Set state like this? Oh, it auto-corrected it for me. Anyway,
And then the state we want to change equal to the new state.
Okay, the state I want to change, this is the new state. So what was it? Oh, set the clone. And how would I do that?
The guest letters equals guest letters clone.
Almost.
Oh, there we go.
And you also have to say where you clone it above instead of dot expand out this guest letters, that's where this dot state
Oh, over here. Guest letters is not defined because we were using hooks before. So all of this has to be this dot state. I'm just gonna go ahead and declare it here. And now we have the guest letters. That make sense?
Mm.
Okay. So when we set state, we need to give it an object of the key that we want to change. I think it should work now. No. Okay, so so here it sets. We're setting state inside a render, and let's. Line in 33, 33, 34. Oh, 33, 34. Here now. So let's do, these are state, right? Puzzle. Do we remember how deconstruction works? Like how this lets me prevent myself from having to say this dot state dot, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dot puzzle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, oh, puzzles and guest letters. Return. Oh, because I did it inside the guest. So here now I have access to it because guest was never invoked. But yeah, I'll do it right inside the render method. If I do any deconstructing, it'll be right inside the render. Either this dot props or this dot state. And it looks like it actually works. Probably because of. Anyway, we're setting a state here. And maybe we'd see it. Where can we see this? I'm going to console log inside the render. And now whenever it renders, it'll console log once. Okay, it still does once. Anyway, I'm not sure why it's not going on an infinite loop, but this set state here will actually trigger a re-render. So every time, oh, it's because I don't actually call this guest until if I do this, oh goodness. If I set state inside a render and it actually tries to set state, it'll trigger the render again. And it'll say maximum update depth exceeded. This can happen when someone calls set state inside of will update or did update or render, and you can find lots of handy charts that show you all the little things. You don't have to remember all of them, but there's 3 main ones. And you should just know that inside the render, if you call set state, it'll change the props, it'll change states, and it'll go through all of these methods, including the render. So setting the state tells the React app that something, the source of truth of how things need to be displayed has changed. And it will know which things need to be changed based off of props. So it'll trigger this whole process whenever you change the state and call all of these methods. You can refer to them just like we did render. If I want to access component will update, I'll just do it inside this class here. And access them that way. But yeah, you don't want to set state inside a render. And this whole function here, this guest function, I wouldn't even have it in the render. I would have it out here. And most of you are familiar with that. So I'm going to have a guest. Or guest equals, because I'm inside this class syntax, I don't have to do the const or anything like that. And I'll just put everything this way. But instead of this guest, this is no longer defined, right? So guest is not defined, nor is guest letters. Oh, here, I didn't define it here. So how do I access guest letters here? Through the state, right? But how do I access the state from inside this function now that we're in a class?
You need this dot state.
I need this dot. It's just like self dot in Python. It's accessing the instance variables of this class. And it has state here. Class has state. And these functions cannot see outside of themselves. So in order to share information, they have to refer to this, just like self inside of a Python class. And one other thing you usually see, if I'm done here, hold on, let me make sure I still haven't done guess.
Well, you did, but you got 2 double arrows. It's right at the top of the screen line 20. Like a double arrow, the event followed by another double arrow.
I'm sorry.
Line 20, right at the top of the screen.
Oh.
Equals
yes.
Double arrow function leading to an leading to a double arrow function.
Oh, that's something. Yes. Oh. But I guess it's still not defined. Why? It's on line 40, character 25.
You need to do this inside the JSX.
Yes. I need to access through this. And as you can see, it's a little more involved, but it's fine. It's just like a Python class. And one other thing you see, and you've seen this before, I'm sure. Guess with this syntax, what happens? Guess letters is undefined. This is undefined. That's because with this syntax, you need to bind this down here. So
Can't you just do a fat arrow? Okay.
yes, that's what we just changed it from.
Yeah.
We took away the fat arrow. And because we took away the fat arrow, we had to do this. And you'll see examples using this as well. It's just fine. It's just the older way. Uh-oh. I'm forgetting the exact syntax. That binds it. It has to get it. I forget, but yeah, you'll see something dot bind this needed down here, and it's because it wasn't a fat arrow function up here. Sorry, I forgot. We can look it up. This and a click. On click. Huh. It's not here. Where? Oh, it's up here. Oh, they did it in the constructor. So we could do it up there. But I was just showing you that, not to get it back to this condition, but to show you how to avoid having to bind this. But that's about it. It's that's the difference between a class-based and function. Now in the class, for lifecycle methods, you have these nice descriptive names that we'll get into soon. And in the functional component with hooks, that's abstracted away into a nicer syntax. So explore that if you like. Sound good? Does anybody want me to go through any specific part of the class-based components?
I've got a syntactical best practice question.
Okay.
Fat arrow functions provide functionality that normal syntax doesn't. Is there any reason to use this, the other way of establishing functions in JavaScript, or should we just be using fat arrows?
Because
we've been kind of talking about the new fancy way, but until we got to React, we didn't really know why.
This fat arrow function, what it does is it's called an anonymous function. So where it's called doesn't matter. It's where it's defined that matters. I think with a normal function, let me answer your question. Best practice, you can do either way. It doesn't matter. One is a little easier to read and takes advantage of something that wasn't available before. It is a new syntax, but I would say it's just easier to read, and that's the main benefit. There's no, you would, when you're using lifecycle methods, I just call them like that, not like the fat arrow function. But when you're writing your own and you use it down here, it's definitely easier to use a fat arrow function, or less typing anyway. Same with the deconstruction. It's not really going to improve any performance or anything. It's just going to be easier to read. Okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything else I want to go over? Just, yeah, remember the different parts of the class. You have the class syntax here. Anywhere that's inside the class.
Mm-hmm.
You're given a vanilla JavaScript playground inside the render. But remember, the render will be called every time that the component changes. And inside here is one HTML. Okay? All right, get back to new site 2.
Thank you.
Take care.